PARC is the source for evaluating teachers per PERA, which I apologize, I don't know what that is. I thought district committees were to establish what evidence student performance would be used to measure teachers. Parentheses 25%, I'm not sure what the reference is. I believe some districts are using math or other evaluation systems. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, the PARA rules, which is another, I'm going to say this, that I do think that that's one that the federal government may back off of. At least that's what I had a chance to talk with Larmar Alexander's committee about that not too long ago. I do think that that's a possibility that they'll back off on regarding the student or teacher evaluations with some sort of testing. So yes, it was committees to be. The difficulty is now that it goes back to Dr. Purvis' talking about previously, is that we're now have to develop another sort of assessment in order to do evaluations on teachers. We had hoped at one point that PARC would be, 3 years ago or so, we had hoped that PARC would fulfill that requirement. It just isn't going to come back in time for us to do that at 25%. So we have to have other assessments.
Will develop some new goals and new report cards for itself. I would go down to the maternity ward of the local hospital, or whatever you call the part of the hospital where the nurses are, who are there when the babies are born, and find out how many babies are born out of wedlock, how many babies are born with single parents, just so you know that. I would think the brand new American school would be year-round, open from 6 to 6. Second characteristic might be that these schools will serve children from age 3 months old to age 18. That may be a shocking thought to you, but if you were to do an inventory of every baby in your community and think about what the needs of those babies were for the next 4 or 5 years, you might see that those needs might not be served any other way. They have to be served in some way, and maybe around the school. Or if you studied a little more, you might go back and think the school might even need to serve the pregnant mother of the baby in terms of prenatal health care. Teams of teachers. Albert Shanker suggested that maybe there ought to be a team of teachers attached to a child from the day that child arrives in the school to stay with that child all the way to the 8th grade. All this would mean there would have to be a very professional corps of teachers. They'd have to be very, very good, because they would be dealing with lots of volunteers. We have a big national service feeling in America today. Why aren't those people working in schools? Well, one reason is it's hard to handle volunteers. So this team of highly trained principals and teachers would have to have career ladders. They would need to be master teachers. They would need to be paid $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year to create a brand new American school in every state capital. The great advantage of that would be there wouldn't be all these arguments about whether to do this program or that program or which one to do first. You wouldn't do any of it. You would create one school, and you'd give the responsibility to one person who would form one team, and you give them 1 year or so, and if they succeeded, then all the rest of us would want to be in that school too, wouldn't we? And so
on a long time, as Charlotte will tell you. This has been going on a long time, but the implementation of the database was actually Lamar Alexander, whenever he was governor of Tennessee in 1989, in the nation's report card, they commissioned all these people to create this database. It had to be a micro record. It had to have cross-reference capability. It had to be standardized in every state. That's what Common Core did. Common Core standardized the standards, and every state that accepted it, 45 states so far, have standardized their standards that mandate to the individual child. So then they had to create a database, right, that monitors every individual child. Those were the grants I talked about, where the National Center of Education Statistics used that $4.35 billion from the Recovery Act and gave all this money to each of the states to create a database, to create a unique national ID to monitor everyone in the United States. It was through education that they did that. That's why all that money was funneled out of the Recovery Act given to Obama to create this database. So you had the Common Core that standardized all the data elements, and then you had the database that created the unique ID to monitor everyone. And then the next step was they waived all the federal guidelines so that they could, one, collect the data, number two, train the teachers, and number three, go into the mental health or personality standards and incorporate those into the reading and math in the Common Core.
All right, let me ask you this.
Okay.
Just